Greetings, Grace Covenant, on this last Friday in February 2022. It's been a rainy morning here. The sun is finally peeking through the clouds. Transfiguration Sunday is on the horizon, and yet it feels like this week, with all that's been in the news, that Transfiguration is a long ways off. Our hearts are heavy for the people of Ukraine, who are now suffering at the violent and powerful attack of Russia in what is nothing less than a declaration of war. And so we want to pray for those people. And my heart has been heavy as I've listened to the news, seen the articles online. But one thing I've noticed is that people around the globe are gathering in peaceful protest, in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, to pray, to protest, and in many of these instances, they are singing. Yes, they are singing because the song cannot be stopped. You know, as God's creation, we have all been given breath and voice. And the one common creative activity that we are all called to is to sing. And we look throughout history, and singing and claiming hope has been a part of God's people for centuries. As far back as Moses and Miriam, he thought it was important enough to teach the people to sing. And as we look at the Israelites in their struggle, and we see the Psalms, and we know the story of their own slavery and their fight for freedom, one of the Psalms, which has been turned into an anthem that some of you will know, is, "With a voice of singing declare ye this, the Lord has delivered his people. Utter it even to the ends of the earth. Utter it to the sons of Jacob. God has delivered God's people." What's interesting about that song is that God's people, when they were singing that, were still in exile, still in slavery. But they sang it in solidarity as a vision of hope. And that's part of what Transfiguration is, a vision of what will be and can be. We look at the amazing transformation in the church with the Reformation fathers. They all sang. They all knew that music was an important part of carrying God's people. Martin Luther did it. John Calvin did it. John Knox did it. Zwingli. John and Charles Wesley. They all saw the value of God's people singing. And those singing protests brought about cosmic change in the church. In our own country, we see the enslaved people from Africa who brought with them their hope, who embraced song and what we now know as spirituals to not only encode ways of encouraging one another for the potential of escaping slavery, but to have the tenacity and the strength to hold on in the midst of just unspeakable atrocity as slaves. In the civil rights movement, song has united God's people. And we have seen and know the songs, "We Shall Overcome," "Lift Every Voice and Sing." So many of these songs have encouraged and strengthened God's people in the midst of conflict, oppression, war, injustice. And now we see the people of Ukraine singing. We see people in Russia gathering in protest and singing. We see people around the world in Sydney, Australia. It's happening everywhere because that is one way that people unite in a common cause. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that music is the thing that solves the problems or fixes it, but it is an amazing gift, and it is an amazing telling moment about where people are called by God to take a stand. Because we see singing in every case throughout history accompanying significant change. And so we need to encourage the song. We need to enter the song, and we need to stand with people around the world singing and fighting for injustice. That is my thought for you today, Grace Covenant. When you hear the song, know that's where the change is going to be coming from, because people are united in a common cause for justice, for peace, for freedom, for the common humanity that makes up the world that we live in. And we want that vision. We want that transfiguration. And singing maybe gives us a glimpse of what that could be like. I leave you with these words from the hymn, O Day of Peace. O day of peace that dimly shines through all our hopes and prayers and dreams, guide us to justice, truth, and love, delivered from our selfish schemes. May swords of hate fall from our hands, our hearts from envy find release, till by God's grace our warring world shall see Christ's promised reign of peace. May this world be transfigured in the light of Christ, and may we be part of the song and part of the change. Thanks be to God, Grace Covenant.